What happens if a several centuries old industry that once defined a certain region disappears? In this episode, we'll answer this question via the story of the Espérance Languedoc company. Chertal, a peninsula located in the north of the Belgian city of Liège, was once the symbol of the future of steelmaking in Wallonia. Today the once hyper-modern plant stands abandoned and is being demolished. Join us in the ruins of this massive steel factory and discover with us the story of an empire falling into decay. In the previous episode, we spent time at original Espérance Languedoc site in Saran, where we also delved deep into the rise of the steelmaking company. Today we are in the last added expansion of the company. The site is absolutely massive, covering 188 hectares. First, we'll head into the massive steelworks. That was a real close one. It shows that security is still active and we had to be really careful. Eventually we made our way to the torpedo card waiting area. In the past, the torpedo cards waited here to be rolled into the facility. After a short while, we made it inside. This is the Steelworks, an LD Steelworks to be exact. The dimensions of the structure were truly incredible, with heights sometimes exceeding 50 meters. The Steelworks used the so-called Linz-Donawitz process, invented post-war to create better quality steel. Pig iron from the glass furnace rolls into the factory via these torpedo cards. The pig iron is tapped into huge pots, which can be lifted by a crane. The massive pots are then transferred to the hall where converters await. Converters can somewhat be seen as massive ovens. Scrap steel is also loaded into the converters, creating a true mixture. Oxygen is blown into the converters, reaching temperatures up to 1700 degrees Celsius. After waiting 20 minutes, you have molten steel. Places like these are eye-openers into the size of the past steel industry. It also shows that nothing lasts forever, no matter how impressive or large something is. The Chertal project was an expansion project by Espérance Languedoc, announced back in the 60s. Driven by the lack of space in their original location in Saran. In the early 60s, Chertal was a desolate peninsula, covered in nature and wildlife. Within 3 years, a state-of-the-art steelworks and rolling mill had to be built here. It was a true mega project at the time, seen as the future away from the old, outdated factories in Saran to a state-of-the-art complex. A staggering 3,000 construction workers were hired to construct the massive project. Beginning with the steelworks. The steelworks were installed with, at the time, the largest converters in the world. A bit further, an equally record-breaking rolling mill was built, also containing the largest plate rollers in the world at the time. The terrain was connected via rail to the blast furnaces through torpedo carts. The torpedo carts had to cross a distance of 22 kilometers through the city of Liège. But this was a temporary measure, as the construction of blast furnaces on the peninsula of Chertal were also planned in the future. In 1963, the steelworks and the rolling mill was opened by the King of Belgium. With iron ore from France being phased out, due to quality concerns, the ore was brought overseas via the many canals reaching the port of Antwerp. Better quality coal was brought in from the coal basin of De Kempe in Belgium. The future of the Liège steel industry was thought to be secure and future-proof. Currently, we're on the roof of the old steelworks, looking at the massive rolling mill. In contrast to the heavily stripped steelworks, the rolling mill was still completely intact and a true time capsule at the time of exploring. Through the extensive old tunnel system, we could make our way inside. These tunnels were once used for electricity cables needed in the factory. After some time, we finally were inside. This is the old machine hall. The hall was visibly being worked on, possibly being emptied out already. Luckily, we were inside on a Sunday, so the chance of activity was relatively low. This hall contains electric motors used to power many machines. The blue units right here were German SAC units, which were powering the machines behind the walls. The unit's housing is already removed, making the copper wheels inside visible. These are probably all original, dating all the way back to the opening, back in the early 60s. The hall wasn't just machines, even an old control room was left behind. This old school control room was a true time capsule, probably controlling the many electrical circuits used to control the powerful electric motors. Behind the blue colored control board, another older looking unit was also located. In 1969, Espérance Languedoc was merged with the large Liège-based company Cockerill. Cockerill was a huge company in Belgium, at the time of the 60s, containing 27 blast furnaces and employing over 40,000 employees. When the 70s started, the positive outlook on the future was scattered by the 1974 energy crisis. The price of energy skyrocketed, making steel a lot more expensive all over Europe. Liège and similar historically inland steel manufacturing centers in Europe were hit hard. In the span of 10 years, the older factories were closed down in Liège, one by one. In an attempt to stay afloat, Cockerill took over nearly all the steel companies throughout Belgium, eventually forming the Cockerill Stambre group. The relatively modern blast furnace number 5 on the Espérance Languedoc terrain was closed down in 1984, including the older 4 furnaces from the 20s. Still being one of the most modern additions to the valley, the Chertal site continued to be invested in and expanded over the years. At the end of this hall, a massive electric motor was located. The impressive motor was connected to an equally impressive machine hall. This is the roughing stand, where still hot slabs of steel were pushed into to flatten them. This machine was the heaviest duty one, handling the rough work of flattening the steel slab. Places like these are really unique. In most instances, the machines get sold off immediately when closed down. It gave a real insight into the past. During the decline, the social situation worsened due to many layoffs. Urban decay set in, including crime and drug problems. In 2005, the industry was a true shell of its former self. Blast furnace number 6, once renowned for its modernity, was closed down. But the workers took a stance. The workers decided to handle the upkeep of the facility and even the security, in the chance that the furnace would be reactivated. In 2007, their efforts seemed worthwhile, as it was announced that the furnace from 1959 would be reopened. A trend of constant decline since the 1970s seemed to have been stopped. For the first time, a furnace was back in operation. Behind the roughing stands, the next part of the facility could be found. These multiple green-colored machines are called finishing stands. This row of impressive machines would finish the heavy plates into a more large plate. The machines were once again completely intact. The control room for this section was much more impressive. It also provided a stunning overview of the production line. All the machines seen here dated back to the 60s again, meaning they were also original units. After the large plates were stretched out to the preferred thickness and length, they were transported to the final stage. Despite nearing demolition, this area still seemed intact. In this pit, the plates were cooled down with water and rolled up by this machine. The steel plates are now coils, which are the finished products. Steel coils are used in everything, from construction to the automotive industry. Inside the control room overlooking the machines, remnants of those who operated this section remain. It really shows what a worker probably called its second home when it was still operative. But this was 10 years ago. In 2008, due to the financial downturn, blast furnace number 6, which had been restarted earlier, was shut down again after a short 9 months of operation. The dream of reigniting the steel industry was gone, and the final phase began. In the 90s, Cockerill Sambre was merged with many other steel manufacturers, finally creating ArcelorMittal, the largest steel producer in the world. ArcelorMittal had a wide portfolio of better and more efficient factories worldwide, leading to the decision to shut down all production in Liège by 2013. Massive revolts started in the streets of Serran, demanding the government to save the lost factories, but it didn't help. – 2013 was the final year of Liège-produced steel. So what caused its shutdown? Multiple factors have been accounted for. The first one is that the industry was set up due to iron and coal being relatively close to the Meuse River. When the mines closed down, iron and coal had to be imported from overseas and brought all the way inland, which was expensive. The second reason is the age of the factories. Many were already older and not fully integrated on one terrain. Many parts scattered around increased production costs. The industry's decline was inevitable. With this, the story of the small company founded by creative entrepreneurs and operated by courageous steelworkers comes to an end. Espérance Languedoc survived many economic downturns and 2 wars, but today it has come to an end. The blast furnace number 6 was demolished in 2016. The Chertal site is undergoing demolition today, erasing the extensive story of the Espérance Languedoc Steel Company.